Hello, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the Africam show. Brought to you by explore.org. My name is Russell Gerber, back again for another fun show, hanging out with the animals here in the African wild. Seeing what comes down to the waterholes, and of course, as always, a couple of great highlights lined up for you from the last week or so. Kicking off the show at the beautiful Tau with some plains zebras on the move. And also as always, if you folks have anything on your mind, if you just want to say hello, pop us a question about the animals or in the bush, or things in the bush that you've seen on the cameras, please feel free to send through those questions. Always lovely to chat to you all. And let's see who we've got out there. We've got Sauncey Whitcomb, welcome. Linda Campbell from South Carolina, welcome. Candy Joe, also from the USA. Teresa Arthur from Ohio. And Cindy Drake, who just says hello Africam. Hello Cindy. Oh, another South Carolina. Irene Gallagher, good morning, good afternoon down here. So we've got another beautiful summer's afternoon in the bush. As I said, it's kicking off the show at Tau, very much the northern parts of South Africa, right on the border with Botswana. So the northern central parts of the country, where things are pretty warm at the moment. Always nice to see our zebras around. And wonderful viewing of the zebras around Tau over the summer season. As things dry out into the winter, often we see them on to other parts of the reserve. But hopefully it's still a few more months of rain. It's been dry for a little while now, hoping for a little influx of rain. There is a bit of a build-up of clouds, and that tends to be how it goes out here. Get a few days of heavy clouds, and then it just unleashes rain upon the dry and barren African soil. You can actually see that quite nicely at Olifants River. Why don't we pop over to Olifants River as well so we can have a look there. See some impala on the other side of the river. And I think just as we crossed over, you could hear the guttural call of a big old hippo. These impala pulling out some of the freshest shoots right on the edge of the river there. So it's also a good time for the animals as you see the river start to drop off in water level. We have new soil exposed, and often get some great new fresh grass shoots popping up that the grazers are quite fond of, as you could imagine. You can of course hear the beautiful calls of that woodland kingfisher. It's still our summer indicator for sure. And they tend to move off as we get into the end of the season. from around about June or even May. That call becomes a distant memory, and they move off into the central parts of Africa. We got a couple of questions there. Let's see. Tom Butler asked, what species of zebra? Tom, thanks for your question. Where we started, that was a plains zebra, as I mentioned. So, one of the many species of zebra we have here in Africa, down in South Africa, plains zebra and the Cape Mountain zebra, the species that we have. But thank you for your question. And who else is out there? Cindy. Good to have you back, Cindy. Cindy asked, do the wildebeest have a breeding season in South Africa? It's another good question, Cindy. We do often see a little uptick in youngsters of the wildebeest breed being born in the summertime. So often you find a lot of young wildebeest around this time of year, and many other of our grazing species. Of course, as more grass becomes available and fresh vegetation to eat, obviously makes things a little easier for them. So you generally find most of the calves are dropped around mid-November to about the end of December. And it can also be influenced by when the rains arrive. Similar impala. But yeah, so you do see certainly a trend in breeding season. I've seen youngsters outside of that season. Again, it depends if you get some out of season rain. You will sometimes see that. But for the most part, majority of our wildebeest babies born in December. And who else is out there? We've got Elaine McLaughlin from Edinburgh. Welcome. Sherry Walker asks, is this a protected area? Yes, Sherry, all of our cameras are in protected areas. Either private concessions or national parks, depending on the location. This is at Wildebeest River, which is part of the Greater Kruger National Park. And on that note, there's another question. Who was it? Tom Butler. Hi, Tom. Thanks for joining us. You also asked us what species of zebra we were looking at. Tom asks, would this be leopard territory? Absolutely, Tom. You actually often see a couple of leopards that walk along a game path on the side of the river that our camera is placed, and we sometimes see it walk right past the camera. It's come up, or they have come right up to the camera a few times, a couple of different individuals. But we often see a big Wildebeest River male, as we call him. He often frequents this area, and there will be a few females within his territory as well. So yeah, nowhere is safe for these poor impala. Looks pretty peaceful right now, I would say. Now, for those of you who have been watching the cameras over the last week or so, we've had some incredible action around. And we had a little themed show last week of Rosie's Pan. And the animals are rows have just been unbelievable on the camera. And one of them was an amazing sighting of a South African python, or Southern African python. And my question to you today for our little quiz, which we'll get to towards the show, what is the maximum length of a Southern African python? So let me know your thoughts. What's the maximum length of a python? It's a nice question for you today because it can give you an idea of the sheer size of these animals. Know your thoughts. As I said, we'll get to that towards the end of the show because you've got an amazing clip of a rock, or a Southern African python, also used to be called an African rock python. We'll get to towards the end of the show. OMG23 is back with us as well. Hello, OMG. Thank you for joining us. And OMG tells me there were 10 lions at Rosie's yesterday. You're absolutely right, OMG, and that is what we've been chatting all about, the action at Rosie's. And without further ado, I'll cut you our little light of the day. And this, of course, was taken at Rosie's. So we were very fortunate to have him hanging around, and a pride we haven't seen for quite some time. This is an Takazile pride. There were 10 of here altogether. There's OMG, so right pointed out. And we managed to capture them having a drink and loafing about the edge of the pan. And of course, these bush from our Rosie's rock cam and the Rosie's pan cam as well. So really incredible viewing. I do love the angle on these cameras. And there's nothing quite like seeing a big old group of beautiful lions all together, all looking pretty healthy, decent bellies on most of them. So they might have had something recently, but a couple of them you still see the hips sticking out a little. I've been hungry for a week or so without much luck, but with these fat bellies, you often see them, after making a kill, head down to the watering holes to have a little drink. And here in this part of the clip, you'll see our famous youngster, now a sub-adult male, and that is, of course, Vincent, a young man with his missing ear. And you can see a few scars and scratches on his face. So, yeah, the life of a young male lion is easy, but so far, I would imagine in the not too distant, perhaps in the next 6 months to a year, Vincent will have to make his way out into the wide world of lions on his own. And potentially try to find himself his own territory eventually. It's so nice to see him again. It's been a long time since we've seen, well, such a big number of the Takazile pride, but certainly since we've seen Vincent. So really cool to have them back. So keep an eye on those Rosie's cameras. You never know who might pop around. As of course we've gone back live now, back to Tau. Just checking if we've got any secret visitors that might have shown up. Got some Egyptian goose hanging around. It's like spoonbill as well. African spoonbill, a big white bird. It is quite cloudy around Tau. So I wonder if we may get some rain in the next coming, well, maybe even this afternoon, this evening. Certainly, perhaps the next few days, you never know. I think Tau could use a little bit more rain. There we see wildebeest laying down, and a youngster in the foreground there on the right-hand side of your picture, also having a rest. Sorry if we had a little bit of audio break up there. Might have been a little loss of signal for a brief moment. Let's see if we got some guesses on our Python question. Obviously, our Python question today was how long? What is the maximum length in South African Python? What have we got? Cindy Drake reckons 10 feet. Umatat 12 feet. Puck MXXII reckons 35 feet. Pamela Wardalova 20 feet. Andy FL 18 meters. Yeah, pretty good guesses up there. Everyone, we've got a pretty broad range as well. So I'll get to that answer a little later on in the show. As we cross over to Kempfers Dam, get some of our lovely flamingos, like a couple of red-necked coots, little blackbirds swimming around in the water. These potentially a breeding pair of the coots. I do love Kempfers, especially late afternoon, as you get such magic colors on the water. And of course our beautiful flamingos, even more special in the golden light. And this looks like a lesser flamingo. The dark bill color in your giveaway for your flamingos. Greater flamingo, much more pale pink bill. Very peaceful here at Kempfers Dam. And while we're talking about this beautiful lighting that we're looking at here, to me, the most beautiful sightings we've had recently, also from wonderful Rosie's Pan. We've got another Rosie's Pan themed show today. One little encounter until we capture cameras as a mother and a very young leopard cub took a stroll right across the scene in the early morning, as was cresting over the hill behind us as we look on here. And you can see a very young little cub, solitary cub, and mom, who looks like she is scent marking, letting everyone else know in the area her territory. And it was such a brief sighting, we didn't even really get the opportunity to zoom in on them, so we're not sure exactly who this individual is. And we don't know any moms with young cubs, but we are are still trying to find out exactly who it is. It's the most beautiful, the golden light. As I say, a very young cub. It looks like, I'd say, probably around 8 weeks, maybe a bit more, around 10 weeks old. Still very little. More often than not, there will be 2 cubs in a litter, sometimes 3. But I hate to speculate. She had 1. But I just say that unfortunately there are many occasions where the youngsters are taken by predators. Sometimes they just don't make it through birth. A high mortality rate for young leopards, making it to adult of around 60% in some areas. And sometimes high, depending on how predators are around and the availability of food for mom. So we come back live now, back to Olifants River, with our beautiful herd of impala. Keep those questions coming out there. Anything on your mind? Who's that? Umatat asks, what is the lion's favorite meal? That's a question. To be honest with you, lion's favorite meal is an easy meal. Whatever they can get. It's trouble or dangerous to catch. That'd be what is their favorite. But it all depends on the size of the pride, of what they tend to show preference to in terms of what they go for. It's all about what is going to be the best reward for the least amount of work. So a pride of 10 lions, we're going to be looking for bigger things like zebra, eland, and waterbuck. If they have the skill, we'll take some of the bigger animals like buffalo, even giraffe. But those are very tricky prey species to take on. It's not always an easy thing, despite the middle weapons that lions have, and claws, powerful bodies, incredible jaws and teeth, of course, and their amazing speed. Well, their prey that they go after have got just as many incredible traits that keep them out of the big. And just like that, one of the lion's considered favorite foods is often considered that because it can provide a huge meal for them if they are lucky enough to take one down. And if you look at this wonderful, see a couple around, difficult for the lions to get to them. Buffaloes will often keep the strongest members of the herd around the outside, and especially when they're in danger, those calves will push towards the middle of the herd to protect them as much as possible. And they look pretty docile, but buffalo are often considered one of the most potentially dangerous animals. If you happen to come across them on foot, very protective of each other. One of the that will actually fight back and attempt to chase off predators if they attempt to take one of the herd. That's not always the case. And how they decide that, if they're less popular, perhaps, And here another one of the species chatting about, one of the bigger antelope, waterbuck. There is an old tale that the teeth of waterbuck are really suited due to certain glands that they have in their skin that help to keep them as waterproof as possible, you can call it that. I've seen many lions eat many waterbucks, so I don't think they mind too much about those glands. But without further ado, and before we run on today, I want to go to our last clip, which has been doing the rounds. A few people have sent it to me. It's really an incredible sighting that we got on camera. One of those things that if you were sit in a sighting like this, it would be very difficult to get this shot because you'd have to be so big. This pine was hanging around tall for a couple of days. But if you just watch carefully here, you see a very brave laughing dove hanging out that part, but you see it patrolling around some of the other branches of that tree for a couple of days. And it gives you a bit of an idea of the length we're talking about in our quiz question today. And an absolutely gorgeous specimen of, as I said, the southern African python or rock python. But here it is. So you see for yourself. Bang, gone. Just like that. So that incredible camouflage and pattern you see along the back, and their ability to stay just like that, is the perfect example of an ambush predator. And you can all see it using just the top coils of its body to subdue that little bird, which after some consulting and slowing down of the video significantly, we've temporarily identified as a green-winged petilia that looks to have been a late afternoon snack for this gorgeous specimen of a rock python. And just like that, the birdie is making its way down into the stomach of a beautiful python. You can actually see a little feather on its head as well. The only evidence left there was once a green-winged petilia, but an incredible sighting and really not something to see every day. And I thought, one of the best sightings we've caught on camera this year. Enjoyed that as much as I know not everyone loves to see the demise of an but it is the natural world. It's not every day we see a massive, secretive predator like actually catching a camera. We're back now with a couple more our plains zebra having a little tussle with each other. That brings us towards the end of our show, folks, and time to get to our quiz question. And the answer to our question today, so as I said, we had a couple of answers, pretty broad spectrum, from 18 meters all the way down to 2.5 feet. But generally saying, your biggest African python or southern African python comes in at a cool 16 feet, about 16.5 feet, around about 5 meters. So I would say that one's not quite fully grown. Probably only around 12 feet mark. I'd have to get a better look. Have a look at that branch, but on the camera a little difficult to tell, but they are massive snakes, by far Southern Africa's biggest snake, weighing at around 60 kilograms. There's some exaggerated reports on the size of that species, but 5 meters is definitely the biggest that has truthfully been recorded. And of course a non-venomous snake, but they are exceptional hunters and really, really powerful, using that powerful big body to constrict in order to subdue their prey species. But what I find most amazing about pythons is, of course, they are cold-blooded or ectothermic. But one of the most interesting things about them, I'll leave you with our last great fact of the day, is that those big giant muscles and the sheer size of the animal are not just for killing. They are often referred to as facultative endotherms, and that term basically means that they're able to warm their body by twitching their muscles, and the females do that in order to help them when brooding. So when they're laying on their eggs, they twitch their muscles to warm up their body temperature, aiding the heating of the eggs and allowing those eggs to hatch. So an amazing species of snake, and not something we see every day. But unfortunately, that means we're out of time. Of course, as we watch our zebras stroll off into the distance, we also have to stroll off into the distance. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We'll be back again this time next week for the Africam show. So do stay tuned, stick around. You never know what might come down to the watering holes that we might catch on the cameras. But until then, have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll see you all again soon. Cheers for now.